This is your Wretched Recap for October 31st, 2025. Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Zach, the Wretched Watchman, and welcome to the Wretched Recap for October 31st, 2025. And this is just a quick hit show that we do at the end of the week to go over a few things. Now, sometimes we may go over something that we've gone over in the past couple podcasts, so make sure you guys go ahead and head back there and watch those podcasts and get a whole load of information that can only be found on those shows. But sometimes we also go over some new things as well that we haven't necessarily talked about. And this week we're going to be going over 5 things that we have not talked about yet. So I definitely think it's worth going over these things and giving an update and making sure that we're all up to date on some of the things happening around this insane world that's just swirling towards the day of the Lord. And so it's worth keeping an eye on. So this Friday, what we're going to be talking about, we're going to be looking at the National Guard Quick Reaction Force, the not real work comments by Sam Altman. We're going to be taking a look at the Archie Bunker Commission that was just fired by Trump, the Karoline Leavitt debt situation there. And we have more abuse in the church. And of course, it's starting to show the difference between when a man does sexual child abuse and when a woman does sexual child abuse and how it different punishments for the same abuse. So we're going to be going over a few of these things, and it's worth discussing some of the stuff. So first up, let's take a look at what's going on with this National Guard Quick Reaction Force. We can see here, Pentagon orders National Guard to establish Quick Reaction Force for civil unrests and riots. Now, this is kind of an update on something that we've talked about just this past week, because there was this thing going around on social media that was a possible memo that was issued out by Hegseth and the Pentagon regarding establishing a National Guard Quick Reaction Force in all 50 states and getting it ready by April 1st of 2026. And there's a whole bunch of other details and whatnot. And I went over that, and I went over how it could be true, how it couldn't be true. There were some things that weren't making sense, but yet we were not getting any denial from Hegseth regarding the thing. But it looks like that was actually confirmed right here, where we can see the Pentagon has ordered this quick reaction force. It says the Pentagon has ordered the National Guard to create quick reaction forces in every state and territory by January. So the difference is in that memo that was on social media that was going around, it said April 1st, but now we're seeing that it's going to be January. So could that have been the plan all along to have it in January? It could have been. Or could they be changing it and moving the date up because of how it got sent out on social media? We don't necessarily know the specifics, but it looks like at least part of that initial memo that we saw was deemed true. So they're going to be deployed by January, that are trained and equipped to respond to riots and civil unrest within the United States, according to the Internal Defense document. Memos: the riot control units are a major shift for the Pentagon, underscoring the Trump administration's push to directly involve the military in responding to protests and other domestic missions that have been off limits in emergencies. As many as 500 soldiers in each state or territory National Guard organization will be assigned to deploy in the United States on short notice and receive non-lethal training in crowd control, handling the detainees, and use of batons, stun guns, and body shields, according to the Pentagon directives. Now, the other thing in that memo that, again, we don't necessarily know if that was official or if somebody made that in order to get this initial plan out. Again, there's so many varying factors. Had a lot to do with chemical and biological weapons, nuclear situations, and so on and so forth. That type of wording is often thrown in these things because they just want to put it in there and have that training there just in case. So I know that was the big thing: is, are they planning for something drastic like to happen? That doesn't necessarily mean that, but it seems like, according to the news that we've received regarding these internal memos, it's not necessarily thrown in there either. So worth noting on that. Let's see here. If we jump down, let's see, the Department of Defense, even though they call it the Department of War, it's still not the Department of War. It has to be approved through through Congress, and it hasn't done that. So it is still the Department of Defense. Will be prepared to immediately provide support to federal, state, and local law enforcement to address threats of civil disturbances. This also aligns with the directive, the DoD directive that was issued regarding federal federal officers as well as the National Guard. If they're working in conjunction with local law enforcement, they will be able to fire upon U.S. citizens and basically kill them. So this would apply to that DoD directive as well. Hegseth said this on September 24th memo ordering the creation of the National Guard Response Force, or rapid mobilization as the circumstances require. Now, we jump down here. This is where it gets pretty interesting. And I mentioned this in a past podcast this past week. Some of the words that Trump issued out during Japan regarding using more of the National Guard and actually bringing in the military.
We have cities that are troubled. We can't have cities that are troubled. And we're sending in our National Guard. And if we need more than the National Guard, we'll send more than the National Guard because we're going to have safe cities.
So we're sending in the National Guard. And if we need to send in more than a National Guard, then we will do it. So he's basically saying that they may bring in the military. So speaking to reporters Wednesday during the trip to Asia, Trump referred to deploying the military domestically. I could send the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. I could send anybody I wanted, but I haven't done that because we're doing well without it. But he's continuing to throw that Insurrection Act around constantly. And we've seen a whole bunch of stuff that we've gone over this past week in prior podcasts. Again, go check those out to make sure that you're up to date on that stuff, that they may be preparing to do such a thing here in the United States. It says retired Army Major General Randy Manner, a former senior Guard commander, said that the creation of dedicated units for crowd control diverts the Guard from its primary mission to prepare for overseas combat and risks blurring the military's traditional separation from domestic policies. There is no need for this. No mission requires this. He said, every American, I don't care what state you're from, should understand that this isn't what we signed up for. And last but not least, it says the quick reaction force in all 50 states, as well as Guam, the Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico, will be prepared to deploy with 25% of the force in hours, 50% of the force in 12 hours, and 100% of the force in 24 hours. And so there's more to this if you guys want to go and check it out, but it is worth noting that this idea of a National Guard quick reaction force in all 50 states and extra territories is likely or appears to be true, and they're heading in that direction. So again, I personally think that they're preparing for something much worse, to do a full authoritarian takeover in this country. That's something that we've been covering for quite a few months now, over a year now. So worth noting and making sure that we're aware of that. Moving on to the next one, we have Not Real Work. This is by Sam Altman. So Sam Altman says if jobs get wiped out, maybe they weren't even real work to start with. Says it's going to be good when an AI executive goes off on a tangent about, hey, what's a job anyway? While addressing or failing to address the topic of how their tech just might wipe out entire categories of human professions. Today's offending party, you'll be shocked to hear, is OpenAI CEO Sam Altman. In an interview with Rowan Chung at OpenAI's Dev Day conference on Wednesday, Altman floated the idea that the work you do today, which might imminently be transformed or eliminated by AI, isn't real work. Altman returns to the farmer analogy. They gave a farmer analogy. I'll go over that in just a second. Analogy when he's asked about 1 billion jobs might be destroyed before new ones are realized. The thing about that farmer, Altman said, is not only that they wouldn't believe you, but they very likely would look at you and say that's not real work. Basically, the farmer analogy is if you ask a farmer from 100 years ago to look at the jobs that we have now, the farmer would say that's not real jobs. You're playing games. I do a real job because I'm actually doing hard work, doing farming, and providing for his fellow man and whatnot. And then they're talking about how if you go 100 years into the future from now, we'll look at those same jobs 100 years from now and go, well, that's not real work because of what I actually did, and then what the farmer actually did, and so on and so forth. It's something that has been a kind of an argument that we've heard over and over and over again through decades, because how the timeline advances, how work advances, how technology changes and everything like that. Whatever generation was before always complains about the next generation because they worked harder, they did things a certain way, and that's the whole argument. We're not even going to get into that because that's a whole thing in itself. That's a philosophical question. But the thing is what's basically being what's being said is Altman's diverting from the question, saying, well, the jobs that AI is going to be taking over right now, which it currently is beginning to do so. Well, if it's taking over a human job, then it looks like that job is unnecessary, or that job isn't a job at all. It's not real work, and so on and so forth. And he goes on to say, I'm so willing to bet on human drives being what they are, Altman said, and I think we'll find plenty of things to do. And the things to do that he's talking about is probably not what people realize is they're making advances to make humans just become UBI batteries. Basically, it's your body energy that's going to power the mining of cryptocurrency. It's your body energy that's going to power the data servers and the AI programs. And then they're just going to pay you cryptocurrency to just barely survive and keep you functioning so it can do just that. And that's the direction that we're going. It's a dark day if you don't have the Lord, but if you do have the Lord, then you really have nothing to worry about, because we know the ending of what's actually going to happen according to Scripture. But still, this is a case of not reading the room, dude. And it's funny, he says humans will always find something to do, but this is one of the main guys who talks about UBI all the time, which is universal basic income, basically just paying you to just do nothing. And so it's just another reveal of what our future holds for us right now, to say the least. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. We got Arch E. Bunker Commission. So the Arch and Bunker Commission situation. And it says White House fires Art Commission expected to review Trump construction projects. The move comes as Donald Trump pursues efforts to build a White House ballroom and a triumphal arch in Washington. It says the White House on Tuesday fired all 6 members of the Commission of Fine Arts, an independent federal agency that had expected to review some of President Donald Trump's construction projects, including his planned triumphal arch and White House ballroom. On behalf of President Donald J. Trump, I am writing to inform you that your position as a member of the Commission of Fine Arts is terminated effective immediately. It says we are preparing to appoint a new slate of members to the commission that are more aligned with President Trump's America First policy, which that should not surprise us, because we're already starting to see more and more information coming out that people are being reviewed for if they have a job, say like at the Health and Human Services Department. It's been confirmed that 25% of your review has to do with how loyal you are to Trump's policies, specifically Trump's policies. And if you do not show loyalty to Trump's policies, even if you disagree with them, you could get fired for that. And of course, we know that the job market is dwindling out there. There's not much available. People are getting laid off. People are getting fired. People are getting furloughed. And so if there's no jobs out there, people are going to be more in line to just conform and just go along with Trump's policy in order to keep the job that they have. Well, in this case, what we have going on here is he fired the people who were obviously not going to be in favor of his ballroom or his arch that he wants to build. Neither of which have been approved in any facet in order to get it done. So everything that he's done so far regarding the bulldozing of the East Wing and everything is completely illegal. And nobody's doing anything. Nobody's saying anything. He could go in there and wipe out the entire White House and build Trump Tower there if he wanted to. And I don't think anybody would get in his way. But it's entirely illegal. Everything he's doing on this is illegal. And these people weren't involved with the design of this stuff, didn't have a say-so in anything, didn't even be able to give their opinion on anything, and they were fired. And he's going to go ahead and hire 6 new people to come in who will be yes men, who will go along with the dictator Trump regime that he has going on right now. Now, again, we've gone over the ballroom thing this past week in a podcast. I don't believe it has anything to do with the ballroom. I believe it has to do with updating the operational command center underneath it. And we know who some of the donors are, like Palantir and Meta and so on and so forth, that can help upgrade that situation. And then the arch itself is something that you would see straight out of most fascist authoritarian regimes out there, because they build something similar. You can see the model in his hand right there. So firing the people who will go against Trump and bringing in the yes men in order to continue his fascist dictatorship authoritarian regime that he's doing right now, which is entirely illegal. Again, entirely illegal. But he does whatever he wants to do. And everybody who is for Trump is even though they call themselves constitutionalists and so on and so forth, they're clapping their hands with all the unconstitutional things that he's doing. So fun times. Next up, Karoline Leavitt's debt. Now, this is kind of one of those things like, why are you talking about this? Because it goes to show that rules for thee, but not for me. So if you're loyal to Trump, and we've gone over a ton of these situations where if you donate to Trump, or you're helping Trump build his own wealth, or any of these types of things that has to do with being a friend or one of his cronies and so on and so forth, that he will bail you out of trouble, even if it's a federal crime where he's supposed to go to prison for 20 years. As long as you help Trump personally, he'll go ahead and take care of you. And we have another situation happening here. As Karoline Leavitt's campaign didn't pay down its debt last quarter, including overdue refunds. Leavitt's old congressional campaign reported more than $326,000 in debt, most of which is refunds for illegal excessive donations. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt told old congressional campaign failed to pay down any of its outstanding debt last quarter, which includes more than $210,000 in refunds for illegal excessive campaign donations, according to the most recent report filed with the Federal Election Commission. Leavitt's campaign reported $326,370.50. As of September 30th, a balance which has not changed since her campaign first disclosed the debt in January after years of failing to disclose any debt. So multiple issues here. It says federal campaign finance law requires campaigns to refund or reallocate donations that exceed the individual contribution limit, which was $2,900 during the 2022 election cycle, within 60 days. Leavitt's campaign has blown by that deadline and lacks the funds to start issuing any refunds. Her campaign raised no money in July, August, or September and reported no cash on hand as of September 30th. The campaign did issue a handful of refunds in January, including $2,900 to each of her parents. So basically what's going on here is everybody else who donated to me, I'm just going to take your money and run. I'm not even going to report it until way late. Then I'm going to blow past my deadline that I'm supposed to report it. That's on top of the $210,000 that were excessive illegal donations. But I'll go ahead and refund my parents their money back. Anybody see a problem here? If this was who was the one lady who was the speaker for the Biden administration? I can't remember her name. She's got the fro. If she did this, you better believe that MAGA would be all over her for this. But because it's Leavitt, dead silence. It's crickets. Again, rules for thee, but not for me. But the independent agency has reportedly not ruled on the case and likely won't anytime soon. Why is that? The FEC is effectively shut down, lacking enough commissioners to execute high-level duties or even carry out basic administrative functions like setting and canceling open meetings, because Trump has went and fired several of them because they didn't go along with the Trump regime. Again, if you don't play yes men, you don't show loyalty to Trump and his policies, you will get fired. This is authoritarianism. A lot of people will say, well, that's just an activist person, because they have a difference of opinion. Just because you have a difference of opinion doesn't mean that you're an activist. I get it all the time. I say something negative about what Trump does, and the Trump fanatics come at me saying that I'm a Democrat. It's like, where on earth have I ever said that? In no way, shape, or form am I one of those people. But because I don't show loyalty, I'm instantly the enemy. And that's exactly what Satan wants to be done in politics. If you don't show loyalty to one side, which both sides are two wings of the same bird, controlled by the same puppet, the chaos master, then you're one of those, you're the enemy. That's how it works. That's why I speak so against the political theater that so many people fall under. This is President Donald Trump must nominate and Senate must confirm at least 2 new commissioners before the body can take action. That's not going to happen because the government is shut down, and it's looking more and more like this is going to be a permanent shutdown of the government. Leavitt's campaign is also in debt with several vendors, including $41,000 to Remington Research Group for polling and more than $46,000 to Axiom Strategies for printed materials, travel, and consulting. Neither Leavitt nor her campaign has responded to requests for comment, and I would not expect them to do so either. So, again, rules for thee, but not for me. Last but not least, same abuse, different punishment. It says former female youth minister, which that in itself is already unbiblical and a spiritual problem. Lindsay Whiteside arrested again on child sex abuse charge. It says former youth minister Lindsay Whiteside, who was recently sentenced in a controversial decision to just 3 years of house arrest and 7 years of probation for child sex abuse in DeSoto County, Mississippi, has been rearrested on new charges by federal authorities. Whiteside's new arrest follows Special Circuit Court Judge Andrew Howarth his recusal from the case amid public backlash and a strong rebuke from the district attorney for DeSoto, Matthew Barton, who over the light sentence that Whiteside received. Whiteside was arrested and charged by federal authorities for transporting a minor across state line to engage in sexual activity. Whiteside was a former youth minister at Get Well Church in Hernando, Mississippi. Court documents cited by Action News 5 allege that Whiteside, now 27, knowingly had sex with an underage girl under her guardianship between May 14th and November 6th, 2024 in the first case. So we have an issue of, first of all, this is an unbiblical situation of a female pastoral position, which we know that that's not correct. This is also child sex abuse in itself, along with it, and it's an alphabet agenda situation because it's a female and a female, underage female. So there's a lot of major problems with this. And according to this, she only received 3 years of house arrest and 7 years of probation for doing this. Imagine if it was a man who did it. And a lot of people are going to say, oh, you're going to start going that route. Yes, I am, because this has been a major problem for a long time. That this abomination of child sex abuse has been handled differently, whether you're a man or a woman, and it should not be that way. The Bible doesn't separate it either. She used the gospel of Jesus Christ as a weapon. She used the vulnerabilities of a child who was going through personal struggles to gain access and manipulate an entire congregation. But even worse, and more specifically, she manipulated a family through an undeniable pattern of abuse that started with several months of grooming and then several months of prolonged and repeated sexual abuse in the worst type of manner. I cannot summarize the entirety of this abuse in a short press conference, but suffice it to say, I sincerely believe that if this was perpetrated by a man against a young woman, that we would have seen something akin to a 20-year prison sentence. Prosecutors said Whiteside's victim was 14 and 15 years old when sexual abuse happened. And we've been talking about several of these cases the past few weeks on the recaps because it's a problem it's been around forever, but it appears to be getting worse and worse and worse. And it's just churches are covering these things up. Pastors are covering these things up. There's incorrect judgment and punishment that's being doled out in situations like this. This stuff needs to be called out. This stuff needs to be talked about. And this stuff definitely needs to be persecuted in a much stronger manner by both the church and the court system. These children, these little ones need to be protected, and they're not being protected. And this just goes to show that I'm grateful that I'm grateful that God, the ultimate judge, is going to make sure that everything goes accordingly in the end. I'll just leave it at that. So anyways, thank you guys for joining me. This was the Wretched Recap for October 31st, 2025. Again, make sure you guys tune in to the podcasts that we do every Tuesday and Saturday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, and 9 p.m. Eastern. And we go over a bunch of stuff that I don't think that you'll find much of anywhere else. So I think it's worth going over. So hopefully you join us for that. And I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out. Maranatha.